Welcome to Deep Thought. There's always a backlash. And I'm going to tell you what inspired this. This thing with Dave Chappelle. And, you have people in the trans community complaining about him. And I don't know what the jokes were. I don't know what was said or anything. But, they you got this whole trying to get him off of there. But apparently there was a situation at Netflix where they were like, nah, we keeping him. And, there's that back and forth. And I've thought about that. And not specifically about that, but is indicative of other things because we live in a society where groups are going to fight for any grievance. And there's nothing wrong with that. They should. If they feel like they're being disrespected or something, they should. I mean, no problem. Like I said, specifically about that Chappelle thing, I don't really know what happened. I haven't checked it out personally to make an intelligent thought on it. But I did think about something else because you have a situation where you got a lot of people, particularly if you consider them on the left, who are shouting out their grievances. There's nothing wrong with that. But see, here's a reality. I don't care which side of the cone, which side of the fence you are. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you right wing, left wing, Democratic, Republican, conservative, progressive. For every action, there is a reaction. That's one of the laws of the universe. Everything is a pendulum. You can't just do something without expecting that something is going to come back of equal force. I don't care what it is. What I would say is, if you're going to do something, it needs to be for the greater good. And then you'll get back something of, you personally might get something back of a greater good. Something to come against it will emerge. And it's that constant pendulum. There's that constant pendulum. And there's always a backlash. I don't care what it is. Something's going to happen. That's why if you look at history and you look at the history of nations, movements, everything, for every revolution, there's a counter-revolution. Every movement, it brings up something else. Something wouldn't exist without something else. Let me use a political example, one of the rare times. I would argue, okay, there's people who are for Donald Trump, against him, and, that's fair. That's fair. That is fair. But I would argue that Donald Trump was made possible by Barack Obama. And it's not like Barack Obama was doing anything right or wrong, but there was a definite reaction to the action of him being elected president. And then even with Donald Trump, there is a reaction to the action of him being elected president. Everything Joe Biden is doing now, and people, there's, of course, people who support it, but I guarantee there's going to be a reaction. It's happening already. And that's just how it is. The second any action is created, there's a reaction. It's just a matter of the type and what's it going to be. If we use that relationship thing, let's use that. Now, there was a period in the early 2000s, it was big for so-called PUAs, pickup artists. But then later on, there was a reaction to it and people going against them. It's always something. When you talk about something like feminism, which was in reaction to a patriarchal systems, right? Their action, they're doing something, but then there's a reaction to that. Like, I don't care, like every single movement, and you can pick any movement that's trying to change society, trying to bring something. Okay, as soon as you find the movement, look for the reaction. Look for the counter movement. Look who's talking against that particular movement. Who's saying something? It's no matter what. Okay, like on YouTube. Once again, I use that PUA example. Right now, we got people labeled as dating coaches. I'm incorrectly labeled as one, but, it's there. There's still a reaction, big reaction against that. See what I'm saying? There's a reaction against that. And that's just the nature of things. And it is. It's the universe is a rhythm. Everything is in rhythm. When there is hot, there is cold. when there's light, there's dark. There's always something, no matter what it is. Like, I'm going to tell you something now. Like, I was thinking about, I remember back in the day, I was thinking about people who were mentally retarded. Mentally retarded, like really mentally disabled. And I thought about it. I said, okay, if there's a person that's that mentally disabled, then the universe somewhere will have a person that is mentally on the other end of the spectrum. You know? Just like you might have someone of great beauty, like consensus great beauty, almost to the point people will use the term objective. Like everybody sees this person, think they're beautiful or handsome or anything. On the other end of the spectrum, there's someone else that's not there. That's on the other side of that. You know? There's somebody else thinking something different. You know, for every Superman, there's a Lex Luthor. It's always something. And it lends itself to balance because ultimately you want the pendulum to get to the balance point. They should balance each other out. Like, let me use the two movements, the progressive movement and the conservative movement. Instead of going back and forth, ultimately it should get to the point where there's a balance between the two forces because they both have positive aspects, both have negative aspects. You know? And it's an interesting thing. But there's always a backlash. You know, most you can do, like if you take an action, the most you can do is, you know, make sure your action is as correct as possible, but also know there's somewhere, there's a reaction to it. And you know what? You might not see the reaction right away, or even for several generations, but there's always a reaction. I mean, if you want to even get on a deeper level, you would say if a certain generation is behaving a certain way, the next generation might behave in an opposite way. You see that, like you see some, like, okay, like you can have some parents, they're very strict and conservative, but then their children come out and they're a totally different way. Because it can be small, it can be large. And it's a deep thought. It's an interesting thing. You know, whenever you look at something, okay, look at any move. What's it in reaction to? Think about it. I want y'all to think about it. Think about it. You see something and say, okay, what's the real start of it? This was in reaction to something. You know? I want y'all to think about that. You know, there's always a backlash. It's somewhere. That's why I said that. There's always a backlash. But you just don't know where. It might not be obvious, might not show up for a while. It might be underground for years, but there's always something. You know? There's always something. So anyway, I want you to have something to think about. Anyway, I'll get back with y'all. Peace and blessings.